Good afternoon to our Thursday meeting of the Rotary Club of Tyler. You have become an attending part of the club that is part of a 1.4 million member movement worldwide. We have core values of fellowship, leadership, integrity, diversity, and service. And our mission, we as Rotary, is to provide service, to promote integrity, and to advance world understanding, peace, and goodwill. That's what we're about. One of the things, too, that maybe a lot of you didn't know is that Rotary International has modules on how to develop leadership skills, and they're excellent. And in about 4 minutes, all of you are going to get an email that will link you to that page where you can look at it and see about leadership skills. Or it might be a module you'd like to look at just to develop yourself for your own business or for Rotary or whatever. But be looking for that in about 4 minutes. You will have that email coming to you. Now, as I've done in the past weeks, all of you take out your cell phone. I want you to take a selfie and post it. Let people know you're here at the Rotary Club of Tyler. Put it on either Facebook or Snapchat or whatever it is that you have. Just take a moment and do that.
Okay.
Post it and let people know where we are today. The more we get that word out, the better off it is for all of us. Has Vicki? No, Vicki's still here. Our pianist for today is Vicki Conway. We're deeply appreciative of her for her talents and skills. She does a wonderful job. Also, I'd like to say, be sure to put your cell phone on mute or vibration or airplane mode or whatever it is that you care to do. And at this point in time, Larry Wickham's up here, and I'd like to get also David Nichols up here. Larry's going to be doing our pledge and our national anthem.
If you would join me as we pledge and then sing the national anthem. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, sing and you see by the dawn's early light, once more proudly we hail, as the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watch, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave through the night, that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
As I was singing to the flag, I had a little emotion, and I felt like the singing was just a little better today. Didn't you?
Yes.
Really good. Let's pray. God, we are so thankful for the country we live in, but we have many concerns. We see the challenges that are before us. God, we pray that your graceful, loving hand would be upon our country, to be with those who are serving us in leadership roles. Lord, we pray that they might look to you for their wisdom. Thank you for giving us wisdom, for being here today in a very good club. May we enjoy each other's company. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
All right, y'all may have a seat. We've got some guests here today, I think. The first guest we would introduce was any Rotarians from other clubs. Are there any Rotarians from other clubs? Stand up and tell us who you are and what you want to say.
Rich Spangler, Longview Victim Rotary Club.
Glad to have you. Let's do something different. Let's start way over here for guests on this side. We're going to come around to you.
I wrote a few guests with me. You may remember Shelby Noble, my girlfriend, and back for another visit. Michelle Rawls was a guest about a year ago, and she came back, and she's actually interested in joining our Rotary Club.
All right.
She brought two guests, and I'll let her introduce them.
So this is Jackie Johnson today. They are the owners of both worlds, the best in time.
Is that everybody at the table? Let's come around the corner here. Yes, what do you want to say?
I have my guest here, Sean Newton from Tyler.
What about here at this table? Yes. Oh, boy.
He's the helper today.
Yes, I'm pleased to bring today my oldest grandson, Silas Lewis. He's going into second grade at Andy Woods School next week, so he gets me named Pops this week.
Hey, y'all have anybody here at this table? Yes.
Good afternoon. So I'm excited because two of my former students from UT Tyler are here. Isaac and Tyler, I'll give a little quick second to tell y'all who they are. But they are going to start Rotary for us, so we are going to try to Rotary.
All right. Excellent. Y'all just quiet back there in the back. We got everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Our greeters for today were Ashley, and then I think it was Mary Birch, if I saw correctly. Yes, she filled in for Dennis today. Paul Gleiser is out of town. So we are going down now to Rotary Business. Be sure to mark your calendars for September the 8th. vocational visit to the American Freedom Museum at the Brook Hill School. Box lunches will be provided by the Corner Bakery. Please take a lunch request sheet and return it to Holly with your $20 prepayment for lunch and admission by September 1st. I remember the last time our club visited out there. It's phenomenal. It is really well worth the time and the drive. It's one of the best things Tyler has, to be quite honest. We need your July volunteer hours. Please email them to Holly, and her email address is where you get your bulletin from. Just reverse that and send her in the hours on that. That would be extraordinarily helpful for us. Our program for August the 18th, next week, is Dr. Brigham Willis, who is the Dean of the University of Texas Tyler Medical School. And that ought to be a great program for us to see what the wave of the future is. Andrea Horton has an announcement she'd like to make.
I am the Executive Director of Smith County Champions for Children. Tomorrow we are having a ribbon cutting and grand reopening. We have a resource room, lending library that serves child care teachers and families in our community. And then we have a counseling wing that we're reopening with newly remodeled offices. And so we'd love for you to come by about 10 o'clock. We'll do the ribbon cutting, you can see the facilities, and then go about your day. We're going to show you the We're at 4883 High Tech Drive, which is right off the corner of Biloxi and Shiloh. There's a U-Haul place right on the corner, and you turn down a little cul-de-sac.
Yay.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrea. All right, at this time, I'd like to have Fran Hall to stand.
Looking all spiffy in her pink.
Fran Hall and her husband Charles just celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary. And I wrote her a note yesterday, and I said, you know, some people don't even live that long. Here you've got this anniversary. But I also wanted to commend Fran. When I first joined Rotary, she was our executive secretary. And she rode hard on this group and kept us in line, and was punctual and keeping us abreast of everything we needed to do. And she shepherded me in a lot of very good ways. In fact, one thing she did one time, and it just totally blew my mind. I know you'll find this hard to believe, but one time I came up here to Rotary without my credit card, and I couldn't believe it. I was fishing around, and I said, well, just charge me double next time. And then Fran, I don't know how she found out about it, but she paid for my lunch. And I thought, I cannot believe that. She was so generous, so I paid for her lunch next week, was what I did. But Fran, I'm glad that you're a part of our club. Even if you're an honorary member, you put in years of devoted service to make us look at where we are. We owe a debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much. There you go. That's absolutely worth it. Now I am ready to introduce our president-elect. She is more fun than anyone or anything I know, even bubble wrap. Here's Trudy.
Thank you, President Allison. I'm getting to where I'm looking forward to these every week. I don't know what he's going to say next. I want to welcome you all again to the Rotary Club of Tyler. I'm super excited to be your president-elect. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm so happy to see such a full room. We've got so many people here today, and we have a wonderful presentation for you today, brought to you by Judge Moran. Just a little bit about Judge Moran. He has served as the Smith County Judge since 2016. Although his current term does end in December of this year, he's the Republican nominee for Congress to represent the 17 Northeast Texas counties that comprise Texas Congressional District 1. He previously served as a city councilman for the city of Tyler, representing District 5 from 2005 to 2009. And he holds the distinction of being the shortest serving mayor pro tem for the city of Tyler in May of 2009. I don't know if that means short in height or it was the shortest term. Yeah, shortest term.
Definitely not stature.
Definitely not. You're taller than me for sure. He's a small business owner. He's also been a practicing attorney representing businesses in both litigation and transaction matters since 2002. He's a proud graduate of White House High School, Texas Tech University, and Leadership Tyler. But he is even more proud that he's been married to Kaina for 22 years and is the father of four wonderful children, 2 boys, 2 girls, ages 17 down to 5. Please extend a warm Rotary welcome to Judge Nathaniel Moran.
I'm so glad to be here. I love being in this room. This is my favorite Rotary group with piano music beforehand. It was great. That was fantastic music. We're going to have a good time today. I want you to stop and ask me questions along the way. And yes, I do have a 5-year-old son that starts kindergarten next week. And so happy to see him be able to go through White House like I did, and happy about being a native Smith County resident for 45 of my 47 years. So good time here. We've got a lot to talk about today and some great information I hope will be helpful to you. I have left some brochures for everybody if you want one. These brochures will give you a summary of a lot of the information I'm providing to you about the courthouse. And I hope that you get your questions answered today, either through this PowerPoint or off of this brochure. And I hope that at the end of the day, however you vote, and at this point we've called a bond election, so I'm not going to tell you to vote yes or no. That's not my job. My job is to give you information. And I believe at the end of the day, once you're provided with that information, then you can make a good decision for yourself about what needs to happen in November. So I'm not going to try to push you one way or the other, but I am going to give you some facts that I think are important to realize. At the end of the day, it is your decision because it's your courthouse and it's your money. So you need to make that decision. This decision is not a short time coming now, or this proposal. Many of you know that the current courthouse was built in 1955. So it's been around for about 67 years. The courthouse we talk about as being a historic courthouse had survived from 1910 to 1955. So it was around for about 45 years. Much shorter time period than the 67 we've had to deal with this current courthouse. The most recent planning period, though, on what to do with the facilities is really about 23 years old. Back in 1999, and it goes really back to the late 70s, I've heard a story that in the late 70s, somebody tried to get a proposal for a new courthouse. And then in the late 80s, I know Don Kent tried to do that as well. But really in the late 90s, that came back to fruition in earnest, where they had a 50-person committee in Smith County. And those 50 people were a task force that looked at all these data, all these numbers, to determine, do we need a new courthouse? And if so, what should it look like? How big should it be? How many courts should we have? What are our projections on caseloads? What are our projections on growth for the county population? They came out with a master plan in 2000 that said, okay, we've looked at all the data, we've taken all the input, here's what we need to do. We need to do 4 things. We need to build a sheriff's office, we need to build a new jail, we need to build a parking structure, and we need to build a courthouse. 4 items that they mentioned. 2 of those items have been taken care of to date. The new sheriff's office has been done and a new jail has been built. The jail actually gets paid off next week. So, yeah, big deal. And we've done a really good job of keeping debt service low here. I'll show you some graphs about that. But what happened was, once they came out with this plan of saying, this is what we need to do, then nothing happened. It was never proposed to the public. The public never had a chance to vote on it. And it just kind of died. In between 2003 and 2006, they looked at, well, what can we do about renovating the current courthouse? Maybe we can wrap a shell around it. And that was the big plan. Let's build a shell around it, make another corridor, because there needs to be several corridors of passageway through a courthouse for it to be safe and secure. And I'm going to focus on that throughout our presentation today. So they decided, let's see if we can wrap it. That's what I call the Chick-fil-A option, right? You get your wrap. But that didn't really work. I know, that was a bad joke. That really didn't work as well. So that didn't work out, so they dismissed that idea, and then the 2005 shooting happened. They reallocated their resources to security measures only, and then they came back in 2007, and by they, I mean a new commissioner's court and a new consulting firm redid another study just like they did in 1999, and you know what they found? Hey, we need a new sheriff's office, we need a new jail, we need a new courthouse, we need a new parking structure. And by then, you know what had happened to the price? It had gone up significantly, because that's what happens over time. Prices just go up. But was that put to the voters? No, it was not. They couldn't find enough consensus within county government to get to a point where they said, okay, we're ready just to give it to the voters to decide. So it actually died. In 2016, before I became the judge, and the year before I became the judge, they looked at the Carlton building and they said, all right, we know we've got to resolve this. Maybe we can just reuse the Carlton building and knock down every other floor between and try to make that into a courts facility. Came out where it's going to be like $50 million, and it still wasn't going to be safe and secure, still not going to have multiple passageways throughout the courthouse. And in about 10 minutes, everybody looked at the plan and said, yeah, that's not going to work. So they dismissed that. And then we came back in 2019, and just to make sure that we had looked at every possibility, we looked again at, can we reuse the current facilities for our logistical and growth needs, administration needs in Smith County, and to solve the safety and security needs of our court system, and we could not. And the other thing that we decided in 2019 was, man, this car is getting really old. How many of you have a vehicle that got to a point where you're like, you know, I don't think I'm gonna put another engine in that car because the car's not worth the amount it's gonna cost me for the engine. That's where we're at with the current facility of the courthouse. So any of you that have been here for less than 23 years, you do not know, and I hope you're hearing today for the first time, this is not a new discussion. This is a 23-year-old discussion about a courthouse. And anybody that says, you know what, we need to phase in the solution, I would say, you're exactly right. Those 4 things that they said in 1999 needed to happen should have been phased in, and guess what? They were. We did the sheriff's office, and we did the jail, and now we're ready to do the parking structure and the courthouse. Those are the last 2 things that need to be done together. So this is the last 3 years. If you weren't here in the last 3 years, what you missed out on is in 2019, we said, we're going to make an earnest push now to have another big community input about what we should do with the new facility. Where should it go? What should it look like? How big should it be? What departments and offices should be in there? And so we went through another study, just like they did in 99 and 2003 and 6 and 2007 and 2016, to find out what we needed to do. We had tons of open meetings, tons of workshops in Commissioner's Court. All of that information is on our website. And if you'll look on the back of our the thing that I've handed out, there is a QR code. You can simply capture that QR code, and it takes you right to the website where all of that information is. All of our planning documents, all of our presentations, all the PowerPoints for the last 3 years. You can see all those workshop decisions about how we got to where we're at. And so that involves stuff like stakeholder meetings, online feedback forums, all kinds of civic meetings back in 2019 and 20. For a big old production, April 9th, 2020, we had a planned Chamber of Commerce meeting. And then what happened? The pandemic hit. In fact, I think it was April the 1st. I got a call from Green Acres that said, yeah, that meeting you want scheduled for April the 9th, we're not going to do that. And so we decided we could not ask the public in the middle of a pandemic without the opportunity for face-to-face meetings like this where we could communicate. We did not think we could ask you to vote for or against a courthouse when information is key. And when you can't have face-to-face meetings, you can't get the information out. So we said, you know what, we're going to wait. We took that idea that we had planned, we put it on the shelf and said 2 things. One, why don't we peer review it while we're waiting, which we did. We sent it out to a couple national firms, and they peer reviewed our plans, and they came back and said, that's a good plan, actually. And I'll explain some of that to you. But then we also took that opportunity to say, make sure that the taxpayers know that we are that they're going through a tough time. We dropped our tax rate below the effective rate, which means From the county side, all that we could control, even with growth in values in 2020 and 2021, you paid less county tax on average across the board. And so that was pretty significant. I think we're one of the only counties in the state that did that in the middle of the pandemic. We dropped the property tax rate by a full penny that year.
Thank you, Smith County.
Well, listen, because we know it's your money, and we knew people were hurting back then. But we also said, hey, we're gonna bring that back out for decision as soon as we can when the pandemic's over, and that time is now. So we looked at a couple different sites. In fact, we looked at 6 different sites, and we looked to determine, all right, where's the best site to put this new courthouse? We looked at in the middle of Broadway, we looked at the west side of the square, we looked at the east side of behind the courthouse, we looked across the railroad track and juror parking. We actually looked where the elections building is, and we looked at some other sites, but these were really the central sites. And we priced out what would it cost us to build on that site. What's the site premium? That's what we determined, is what's the site premium and which site best meets the needs of the building as we move forward and the community. What we decided on was this east side, which is out the back side of the courthouse. If you can imagine that, if you were walking out the back side of the courthouse, that row of buildings back there, that east side of the square, most of which were uninhabited and not used at the time, that's where the new courthouse would go if we were to build it. We did a traffic study about if we close down Broadway, the size of the building just doesn't work to put that building back in the middle of Broadway. When we started the process out, I was telling everybody, we're putting that thing right back in the middle of Broadway. And then we went through the citizen input process, and we looked at our objective data, and we came out and we said, ooh, actually, that's not really the best place to put it. That's the way citizen input should work. That's the way a process should work. You should look and get that objective data and subjective input, and that should inform your reasoned decision to move forward, even when it's not maybe our personal decision. Have any of you guys ever tried to renovate a house with your spouse or build a new house? Let me just tell you, we're on the backside of that. In the last 6 months, I didn't share this with you, Allison, but in the last 6 months, I lived with my mom for 4 months. And so did my wife and our 4 kids. We all moved into my mom's house while our place was getting redone because we had a flood in the middle of the primary, which is not a great time for that. And so, of course, when you get when you get through that process, what you realize is you do your best to make the decisions you can. But at the end of the day, you and your spouse, neither one of you are going to get everything you want. And even the things you wanted, when you get done, you're going to be like, well, actually, I probably didn't want it exactly like that. So think about trying to build a courthouse with 233,000 spouses. That's the position I feel like I'm in these days, is there are 233,000 opinions about, well, you know what? We should have this color carpet and this color drapes. So what we've tried to do is give enough detail that people know what to expect, but not to get caught up in all those small details. Because if we get caught up in the small details, you know what you're going to have? What you currently. That's what you're going to have. So one of the important things we also did when we took that pause in 2020 was we said we want to continue to be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. And what that means is we need to try to start purchasing the properties we know we're going to need in the next 2 years or 3 years or however long it was going to be. We need to go ahead and start using cash to buy those properties up so that we can be ready when the time comes to present this. And we've done that. So take a look at this. This is a representation. At the time in 2020, the orange represents the buildings that were owned by the county on that block when we put a pause on this. The blue represents what I called underdeveloped or undeveloped. There were some properties that just didn't have anything going on. And then the yellow were developed properties being used at the time by active businesses or active individuals. You guys, does everybody see the orientation? Do you understand where it's at? The jail is to the right and the administration building is to the left, the annex. So fast forward to that's where we're at. The county has cash, and all of that orange there, we just closed on the Martin Walker law firm about a month ago. And so all of those properties we own, the yellow are the properties we still have to work on, and we're continuing to work on those, and we will with the landowners there. We want to be very good to the landowners there as we move through this process. But look at that. Significant change in what we're doing. That's in my mind, how you strategically solve a problem. you saw it, you eat the elephant one bite at a time. It's a big project. Let's do the things we know we can do while we can do them. All right, so let's talk about the exterior design. Stop me if you have questions. Look at the left. That's our 1852 courthouse, not our first courthouse, but pretty close. That was the first one that was of any note to photograph. And then 1910, what we call our historic courthouse. And then 1955, our best rendition of a communist courthouse. And all we're doing, we're simply missing, I'm trying to figure out what they did with the sickle and the hammer. I know it's gotta be somewhere. Either that or the statue of Stalin out front. I mean, it's one of the two should have been there, because it really does remind you of a communist building, doesn't it? You know what's funny about this building, and you'll see on the handout there, it was built for 2 trial courts. It currently has 7 trial courts in it right now. The year after it was built, I'll share this with you. The year after it was built, the Commissioner's Court said, "Oh, you know what? We built that thing for 2, but we need a 3rd court." And so 1 year after they built it, they had to reorganize some of the space in there and put another courtroom somewhere that wasn't designed for a courtroom. We now have courtrooms that are in places that were originally just offices, the law library. There was one that was like a big storage area. We have courts that are where the jury can't see all of the people that are involved in the case because it's recessed. The judges have to leave their chambers, walk down the small, narrow hall to get to their courtroom. Jurors have to leave a courtroom and walk down the hall to get to a jury deliberation room. We have a deliberation room where we had to send back the 12 chairs we had ordered because you couldn't actually physically fit the 12 chairs in the room. And so we are doing our best to use that facility and maintain that facility as best we can. But with 7 trial courts squeezed into a building where there was only meant to be 2, it becomes pretty impossible to do that. That's why we have some logistical needs, and that's why you're going to hear me say with the design of the new courthouse, we're not designing it for the number of courts today. We're looking 75 and 100 years down the road about logistical growth on case increases, population increases, and saying we're going to prepare for those needs down the road so that your investment, if you choose to make it, is not a bad investment. Next year we don't come back and say, oops, we need to add another court. Because we do have a new district court starting in January. We've got some temporary space for them ready to go, but it's not good long-term space. And then in the next 4 years, you're probably going to need another county court of law that I suspect the legislature will give you. So here's the design for the new courthouse. This is looking at it from Broadway. You can imagine that green space right there is where the current courthouse is. Somebody asked me earlier if we were going to sell bricks or stones, and actually I meant to respond and say, really, I think we could probably make a whole lot of money if we sold sticks of dynamite. For the old courthouse. I'm pretty sure that we could make a killing off that. You can see, if you flip back though, look at the middle design of the old courthouse. We asked the architects, I said to the architects, look, one of the things about this community is they love that old courthouse. And if we're going to propose a new courthouse, it needs to be consistent with the design and the history of Tyler, and give a thank you to that old courthouse for the memories it provided to us. So you look at the triangle area there, the columns, that rooftop, all that design is fit into this one right here. And it's meant to be that. And I'll end this slide today by reaffirming this notion that I was not going to present as a county judge. I was not going to present a courthouse solution to the public for vote one way or the other that did not reflect the character of the nature of the activities that went on inside. I believe that very, very important things go on inside a courthouse. More than 50% of the expenditures that a county goes through each year has to do with the justice system and law and order. And if we value that, then I think our building needs to reflect that. And when people walk in there, just like when they walk in a church, they need to understand that there's something very eternal, something very powerful, something very life-changing that happens in that building. We can do it physically in a space that looks differently, but the community, when we went out to get input, the community response to me, and I agreed with this, was we need one reflective of our history, of our present, what we want as the future, and the value we put on what goes on in that building. Did you know?
Where that thing is sitting, does that mean that North Spring Street has been taken out?
So North Spring Street technically runs right here, and it would be closed. And the proposal also makes Irwin and Ferguson, it makes it two-way. So you would have two-way streets along there as well. But it gives you a nice lawn to Broadway, and then Broadway remains open, undisturbed, but you have a nice lawn area till then. And it's situated right between the jail and the administration building. And the good thing about this location, I didn't mention on the location slide, is if we were to build it in the middle of the square, it would probably destroy all the businesses downtown, because all those streets would be shut down for 2.5 to 3 years while construction happened. All the construction is going to happen on the east side. None of those businesses will be disturbed. The materials will be on what's now Juror, limited to the east side of the square and not disturbed as it goes on the square. And we can build it while the current courthouse is in use. Then the judges and staff can stand up, walk across the street, start their stuff, and then they can go on about their business. So there's no disruption about with the justice system as we transfer people from one building to another. Provides for the shortest tunnel between the jail right here and underneath. There's a parking structure, just one parking level underneath this courthouse by design for elected officials and staff, and for sheriff's office where they need security. Underground parking is really expensive, so you'll hear me talk about the parking structure adjacent to the building that will accommodate jurors and county employees. And then for any businesses downtown that need extra parking, we'll have it extra parking in there.
It does look like you have a good ocean view.
You know, that's so funny, because when Steve Fitzpatrick's group put this together, comment, and I've heard that at almost every presentation. Everybody's like, so can we get the ocean in on this too? Yeah. I'm really not trying to sell you, but yeah, it does make the picture look better, doesn't it? Yes. Yeah. It's 6.5, yes, sir.
How many floors is that?
6.5 stories. That's exactly what I was going to tell you. I'm going to show you the vertical, the interior design, and it's going to tell you exactly about this. So the interior design is built around or designed around safety and security. And I'll show you each one of the floors. What time is it? Can you give me a time?
Or you stood out there.
10:35.
He's talking.
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. All right. Safety and security is really at the base of everything. There are 3 designed floors for courtrooms, which means there's going to be 12 courtroom spaces at least. And those will be on floors number 3, 4, and 5. Yes, 3, 4, and 5. So one will be the district clerk's space, the law library, and the jury assembly room. 2 will be the county clerk space, and I'll show you a picture of that in a second. The county clerk space and some administrative space up there that's going to be shelled out. And then 3, 4, and 5 will be court spaces. 6 will be the DA's floor, and then that half floor above that would be for the 12th Court of Appeals. Now, the safety and security, you have to design it around the trial courtrooms, and this is what we did. What we determined when we looked at best practices around the country was you need 3/4 of traverse. You need one for the public, you need one for judges and their staff, and you need one for those coming from the jail and the sheriff's office. And those 3 should never unintentionally meet, ever. They should only intentionally meet in the courtroom. If you do it that way, everything remains safe and secure. Right now, our building is as safe and secure as the building can be, but it is not as safe and secure as it needs to be. If you've been in there, 17,000 jurors go in there a year, by the way. If you're one of those 17,000 jurors that go through there, you know that there's one bathroom on the 2nd floor that is shared by witnesses, victims, litigants, jurors. I mean, just about anybody has to go in that same facility, and then they're in the same hallway. Conversations get overheard, altercations occur in a very confined space, and that's not the way safe and secure justice systems should work. Victims shouldn't have to be that close to their criminal defendants, and criminal defendants shouldn't have the opportunity. And we had somebody speak about this in court this week. They walk down a narrow hall, and with a chain of them, and one person in the front leading them, or one person in the back leading them. You know, when you go through that long hall, some things can happen in there before reaction can take place. So this is the way it's built. Is look at the gray. That's the in custody. There's going to be an elevator system. Let's just walk through what would normally happen. You bring over a group of prisoners from the jail. There'll be 2 jail holding tanks in the basement of the courthouse. Then when they're ready to take them up to a courtroom, they go up the secure elevator system. They get out between 2 courtrooms, and they're in a little area that looks just like the jail. And it's got 2 holding tanks in there where they can put them until they're ready to go into the courtroom from the side, either one way or the other. But they can't go anywhere else. Now, attorneys can visit them from the public area. They can get in there and see their client, have a confidential communication with them through the same kind of glass that you would see in a visitation room in the jail. Ellis County has a great setup like this, and we've improved it just a little bit more in our design here. So that's traverse number 1. That's corridor number 1. Corridor number 2 is for the judges. Look, their elevator system comes up right beside and adjacent to that, but it opens to the back instead of opening to the front of the building. It opens to their back secured area where judges and staff will have their offices. And then you can kind of imagine a middle line here where one court would have half and the other court would have half. Juror rooms are in the corner of each, right there and right there. So when they leave the courtroom, jurors just go right back to their room back there, and they've got separate bathrooms back there with the judicial staff, and it's all secure. And if you're a member of the public, and you come up your regular public elevator system, and all that blue you can access. And you enter the courtroom from the front. So the judge enters the courtroom from the back, right here, the public from the front, and the in custody from the side. They all get to meet in the middle where justice takes place, and then they all go back their separate ways. If you're a member of the public and you want to see a judge, well, then you got to go around the side to where their office door is, and you can be buzzed in. But there's no unintentional meeting of any of those groups of individuals, and that's the way a safe and secure courthouse should be. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say, it seems to me we have the perfect storm right now of the things that are not mentioned in here, but the speedy trial that is mentioned, the speedy justice system and the less crowding of the jail. And that's just overarching for security and safety. And 23 years was before that everybody started talking that we needed to do something. So 23 is just a number out there, and it's time that we get modernization and safety and security all in one. And I think the one that I said that's not mentioned in here is your ability, and just like Raymond, we were just talking about, the continuity of your leadership and having all of this knowledge and all this information right now, and thank you for running for Congress, but leading us here and making sure that this happens with your wealth of knowledge and the input that you receive. I think that just puts us over the top to do this now. We have this window of opportunity, and that's just 3 reasons right there to get this done.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Gareth. And this is a, besides this being a 3-year journey for the court, it really was for me personally something I didn't feel good about leaving undone. For me, it's just a procedural vote. On Tuesday, we call the vote. I don't decide substantively to raise people's taxes on this or to do this. All I can do is make the best decision about the input I got and the output that needs to be presented, and then let the public decide. And I felt like I couldn't leave office without giving you the chance to make a decision on what you wanted to do. That's been the problem for 23 years. We've never allowed the public to make a decision. And so I think the public wants to make a decision. There's never a great time. I'm going to be honest with you. There's never a great time. In 2020, we thought it was the worst time to put it on the ballot. Now, I mean, inflation and recession, there's some real issues to deal with, and I recognize that. I really do. But I think people deserve the chance to say yes or no. And that's what we're wanting to do. And I would not in good conscience feel good about walking away from this job without giving that opportunity. So here's how it vertically stacks back to the floors. You see that lower level, and then each one of those levels, as I described to them at the top. I want to make mention about this. Many of you don't know the 12th Court of Appeals is here in Tyler. Sean does. I mean, he's a lawyer, so if you're a lawyer, any decision that a trial court gets wrong, you appeal up to the Intermediate Appellate Court, which is one level down from the Texas Supreme Court. There's 14 in the state of Texas. One is situated here in Tyler. It's the 12th Court of Appeals. Does anybody know where that's located at? The Cotton Belt Building. One of the most beautiful buildings in town. Second only to the current courthouse. It was built as a bomb shelter. Their facilities are wholly inadequate. The statute requires that the county and the city are the ones that have to take care of those facilities and provide those facilities. Do you know what was talked about in the last legislative session? Combining courts of appeals. They're going to talk about it again this next session. And if they decide ever to combine courts of appeals, you can rest assured if they're still in that building, ours is going away. It's going somewhere else. It will not stay here because there's not physical facilities for it. We have designed this top floor to accommodate a 6-person court of appeals. Right now we have 3. If it was combined, we'd have a 6-person court of appeals. So we've designed it for that effect, and we would move the 12th Court of Appeals over to that top floor, which is, as I said, a kind of a shrunken floor. I want you to know that we have done our best to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. If we hadn't been, I wouldn't even ask you to go down this road and to make a decision one way or the other. Let me tell you a little bit about that. I just announced this week that the proposed tax rate for this next fiscal year will be 33 cents. When I started 6 years ago, it was 33 cents. And in between, we took a little bump up for law enforcement, and during that time period, we had 2 road and bridge bonds approved significantly. What we've done is we've subsumed them within the rate, and that impact, I know your values are going up just like my values are. By the way, we are not the appraisal district. We do not control the appraisal district. We have nothing to do with the appraisal district. Nothing to do with the appraisal district. What we do is we deal with the rate. And so we've been trying to keep it as low as possible. We're in the best 7% in the state of counties with their tax rate. And within that 33 cents, I promised you 4.5 years ago now, 5 years ago, about roads and bridges. That we've fixed roads and bridges. We've got a plan that's fully funded thanks to you guys and thanks to tons of millions of dollars we've been moving over to roads and bridges. But quietly what we've been doing is, and what I told the community 5 years ago was, look, the problem is we've never funded roads and bridges properly. And because of that, we need a bond to get us caught up. And once we get caught up, then I promise during my tenure that we will allocate by policy the amount of money that we need to, so that long-term you won't need another road and bridge bond. That's what we're doing. And I want to show you graphically how that works. When we first started by policy, we were dedicating 2.9 pennies out of our tax rate towards roads and bridges. This next year, it's going to be 4.25 pennies. We keep bumping it up without bumping the tax rate up. We keep trying to use the value growth and cutting where we can to reallocate monies to go to roads and bridges. Again, so you won't need another road and bridge bond one of these days. That once we get caught up, then we can sustain ourselves. That's going to change the amount of money going to roads and bridges from like $4.2 million to almost $10 million this next year, just by policy implications. When we get to 5 pennies out of that allocation, that's where they're headed in the next couple of years, then you'll have a fully funded road and bridge department the way you should have 20, 30, 40 years ago, which you didn't. So you can see what we're trying to do within that tax rate. And that also subsumes, again, those bond allocations that were approved by the voters. So almost 3 new pennies are going to roads and bridges in the last 4 years, even though we haven't raised the tax rate. If you look around the area to look at our comparison of tax rate here, it's a light red, but all those counties besides Smith is actually red around us. You can see the tax rate. We're at 33. It's going to be 33.5 now. It's going to be 33. Gregg County is the only county with a lower tax rate. Everybody else has, 58, 56, 63, 61, 36, 42, 56, 53, 61. Those are the tax rates around us. And you say, well, and it's true, they're a little bit different counties. Everybody's different. Gray County has about half the county roads we have, or less than that. We have the 10th most county roads of any county in the state, which is why we're allocating so much money to roads and bridges. But all these other counties, lower sales tax, lower value base, so sometimes you can make a good argument that the rate has to be a little bit higher. I understand that. But what about comparing us to other counties of similar size? Look at where we're at. We're on the left. So that's Smith County, Ellis, Jefferson, Guadalupe, Hayes, Webb, Johnson, McLennan, Brazos, all the counties that are similarly sized to us. And look where we're at. We're at the best down there. We're doing really good, I think, with the taxpayers' dollars. The gray is debt service. The green is what your maintenance and operations are. And then the light blue on some of those counties is an additional road and bridge tax that those counties have imposed. For us, that light blue really gets subsumed inside that dark green by policy, and I just explained that to you, what we're doing. What if you stack City of Tyler, TISD, Smith County, TJC, stack them on top of each other, and then look at other communities of similar size and stack their major city and their community colleges and all their taxing entities. If you stack them on top of each other, now look where we're at. We are really good. Why? Because all those organizations here in Smith County do a good job keeping the tax rate as low as possible. So I hope that people will say we've been good stewards of taxpayers' dollars. As I mentioned, the road and bridge stuff will completely rebuild or pave almost 500 of our 1,200 miles of county road system in the 6 or 7 year period of time that we're doing these projects. That was the promise we made to you. That's the promise we're keeping with you. And that's the promise I think gives us the ability to now say, all right, here's another project we need you to trust us with. What's the financial impact going to be? It's going to be about 3.67 cents. $100 valuation, that's about $73 per year for a $200,000 home. It's going to be on a 25-year amortization, and that's going to be for a $160 million courthouse and $19 million parking structure. You remember all those studies I told you about in 2000 and 2007, all those studies? If you look at all those studies and you take the number that they estimated would cost for the courthouse, you can see, I've got it on the back page of your handout here. You'll see that the inflation indexed price for every one of those is almost identical to the current cost, $160 million for a courthouse, every one of them. So the inflation index price is going to change and go up. The number is going to be greater, but the truth is the problem doesn't change, the solution doesn't change. The only thing that changes is the number associated with it. It's just going to keep going up. And again, I know this is a bad time, but you know how much that number was 2 years ago? 125. 125 for the courthouse, now it's 160. It was about 15 for the parking structure, now it's 19 for the parking structure. If we wait 2 more years, the problem won't change, the solution won't change, the price will be 190 or 200 or 210. And that's the reality of it. And so that's why I know it's a kind of a bad time to ask folks, but the truth is we won't sell these bonds until next year. If you're over 65, it won't impact your taxes at all. Your taxes are frozen. And we'll begin building in parking structure at the end of next year. And then probably by the end of next year, starting on the construction of the courthouse. And it'll be built in 27 to 30 months. So historical rates for general obligation bonds. Another thing I want to throw out there so that you understand historically, we've gotten used to in the last 3 years, interest rates of 1, 2, and 3%, 1 and 2%, and we're seeing it up to 3% now, and it hurts. But look historically at where the interest rates are comparatively to the last 30 years. Still a pretty good time for interest rates when you look back historically and look forward as to what could be. As I said, zero tax impact if you're over 65. The intangibles, I want to mention this to you. We're out of time, Allison.
Yeah, we got 5 minutes.
5 minutes. This is my last slide, and then I'll show you a quick video. I just want to reaffirm, there's more to a courthouse than just dollars and cents and bricks and mortar. It's about law and order, safety and security, justice and mercy, citizenship and community. It's the center place for everything that goes on in this community, and reverence and respect. As I mentioned, the building needs to reflect, I think, what goes on in that facility. Ultimately, it's your money, it's your courthouse. You need to make the decision. I've done my job. I feel like we've done as good as we could to listen to the folks and give you a solution that is in tune with what you want and what this community needs long term. But Ultimately, it's your decision, and I want you to make it. I want you to be happy with what you decide. In 1952, they passed a bond 52% to 48% to knock down the old building, or to the historic building, and build that nasty thing we have now. And so your vote matters, one way or the other, your vote matters. Yes, sir.
Provided all this passes, what is the timeline to be in that new building?
27 to 30 months to be in the new building, and then from the date of construction. So it would be, let's just say fall of 2023. So you're talking about 2.5 years after that. So spring of 2026. Yes, sir.
Back to the courthouse, in the conference rooms, how many conference rooms are there going to be available for litigants?
A lot. Every courtroom is going to actually have a double entry, like you see in Houston or whatever. You walk in, there's two conference rooms on each side, and then there's a bigger conference room at the end of the hall.
And one other question.
Yeah.
Can we expect Washington to be run like this in about a year?
You bet, John. Yeah, let's get through 2022. Yeah, if I have anything to do with it, we're going to do our best. Problem solving is not hard when you learn to be transparent. You build trust through relationships, and you think strategically, and you communicate that out. It's not that hard, isn't it?
Any city or COVID funds that are gonna be dedicated?
So we can't use a lot of them. We can't use the ARPA funds for this at all, but we have been able to use some of the ARPA funds to purchase some of the properties. But the parameters won't let us do that. Yeah. Let me show you a quick fly around video.
Hello.
Is this with the dynamite and the old?
It's just about a minute long, and then I'll take any questions you have, and I'll stick around as long as you want afterwards.
Where's it going?
That's the horizon.
Yeah, the ocean disappeared.
Yeah, that's the horizon.
There's that parking structure I was telling you about. There's Allison walking by. All right, so you guys got the drift. What questions do you have? Anybody have? Yes, sir.
I was wondering about the green space across Broadway from the courthouse. Is that going to be changed or updated or anything?
Yes. It absolutely will be changed and updated, and what I instructed our architects to do was make it flat and green for decision A, so that, again, people don't get caught up in the drapes of the carpet. And then once that's built, everybody knows it needs to be changed. The city's working with some great architects right now that did Sulphur Springs downtown, and trying to find a great design for that side that we can collaborate with them on. Yeah. Other questions? I really appreciate, here's how I'm going to end. If I don't see you guys before the election, or before, I'm sure I'll see some of you, or most of you, before January. I really love being your county judge. I've loved being your county judge. I cannot imagine I'm going to like Congress near as much as being here. Truly, I love this home place. I've done my best for you here, and you guys make your decision. If you're for or against it, either way, I know there's personal implications for everybody here. Get out and tell people the way you want it to end, because if you just assume everybody's going to know this information and vote the way you think it needs to go, it won't happen. Don't assume. Get out there and push it whichever direction you want it. Push it, or send them to me and I'll help push it. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Oh, Judge Moran, we have a certificate for you. We're making a donation to the Literacy Council in your name, and that's your certificate. It is time now for the Ace of Diamonds. Remember that one half of the drawing goes to the club, one half goes to the potential ticket winner. If the winner's a Rotary guest, that guest gets 25% of it, the host gets 25%. And how much do we have in the
We're gonna
till?
get
No.
little help.
Oh, you get to do it, Si.
But do you want to turn it? Okay.
Jim, how much do we have in the, what's the?
More than, well, less than his budget, but, but it's a start. $3,072.
Wow.
Feeling it, I'm feeling it.
Then it's, all right. Good job. Now,
Okay,
let's,
got
now
it?
I'm gonna hold it. You stick your hand in
Pull
there.
out one.
All
Better
right.
not be ours.
Okay. I can't read. 898.
Okay, 898. Who's got it?
Nope, it's not easy. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that you?
Redo.
No.
Is it you?
Redo. Get another one.
There you go.
Was it
Silas.
you?
I feel it, I feel it.
Okay, Silas, what are the last three numbers? Read those last three.
832.
Oh, you just made yourself a best friend.
I don't think that
Okay, Rochelle. Do us proud. Better luck next time.
Yeah.
Okay, let us stand so that we can go through the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First.
Is it the truth?
Second.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third.
Will it build goodwill and better relationships?
Fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
We are adjourned.